Today, we're digging into something that might sound a little strange at first, but oh so real, the fear of success. Yep, you heard that right. Some of y'all are afraid of success. We all talk about the fear of failure, but what happens when we're actually afraid of making it, whatever that means to you? That fear of reaching the next level, being seen, and even maybe outgrowing your old life. That can be just as paralyzing as the fear of failure.
Yeah, and I think this is a funny thing because it's like a paradox, right? Like, Candace, how many times have we said people just want to be seen and heard and understood? Yes, insert eye roll, guys. Like, truly, yes, that's what we
I
know.
literally wrote that in my Instagram story today. Again.
That's probably why I was like in my head, right? So, like, we know at a fundamental human level, I don't care what business you're in, human level, that's what we crave. And yet, when it comes to reaching a new income level or making a new friend or moving to a new city or starting a new job or switching careers, that we know on paper is us moving in the right direction, it is us achieving success. It's still the unknown, and our brain freaks out. And when we try to do all of these things to keep us in the known, even though we want to be seen and appreciated and acknowledged and recognized, it's like this weird paradox where like we crave growth and change and success. And yet our brain is like, but don't do it. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like this
Yeah.
thing, you know?
Well, as we've talked about many times before, our brains are wired to keep our bodies safe, and safe is often what's familiar.
Yeah.
At least that's what our brain tells us.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot to have the courage to take that next step where maybe more people are going to see you, meaning there's more opportunity for criticism and there's more opportunity for, I know what a lot of people are talking about right now is like fear of getting canceled, right? When
Yeah.
you put yourself out there and you have an opinion, there's fears that come with those things. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I think what's on the other side of fear is everything you ever wanted.
And I agree. And like the other like echo that I have heard and seen is that people are like, oh, but if I am that successful, if I achieve that much, if I build that company, if I build that team, what happens if I lose it? What
Mm-hmm.
happens if I lose everything I ever achieved? And I'm like, well, then you learn, you rebuild, you try again, you keep going. You don't crawl into a hole and like never come out again. What if you lose it? Yeah. What if you keep it? What if you make it bigger than it ever could be? I think like this is where like self-sabotage comes into play, where instead of thinking you're your own best advocate, our default in our minds is to be our own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to rewire that. And it's not going to happen overnight, but like even being aware of like retraining your brain and your self-talk and how you approach that can be really, really helpful in eking yourself toward this.
We have an episode coming up that is not out yet with someone who specializes in helping people to reframe their mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that episode's going to be super, super helpful. So when it comes out, you guys be on the lookout for that with a mindset coach. Kind of helps you learn how to manifest and switch the wiring of our brain so that we can do the thing that maybe feels unfamiliar while still knowing that we're safe.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, one of the things that might be popping up in your mind is like, well, how do I know if I'm afraid of success? Like, definitely know I'm afraid of failure, and we need to reframe failure into a lesson and failing forward and failing fast. But how do I know if I'm afraid of success? Because sometimes knowing yourself can be the biggest hurdle here. And so for me, I don't know about you, Candace, but like when I have gotten nervous about like new consults on the calendar or new opportunities in my DMs, and I just kind of like leave it on red, like I kind of like look away from it. I'm like, just gonna like leave it there. I'm just gonna, if they want me bad enough, they'll keep on following up or whatnot, right? I make these excuses. But
Yeah.
then once I finally do and I hop on that call, and that like apprehension just like falls away. But if you're like kind of turning away from opportunity, or you're missing deadlines, or you know you are rewatching old TV shows. Apparently that's a coping mechanism, wanting to stay like in the same and
Mm.
not trying new things, like challenging your
Oh, like
mind.
watching Friends over and over again is not a good thing?
I mean, good is subjective. Sometimes we need that comfort food, but if you're doing
Yeah.
that in response to avoiding switching
Mm.
careers, leaving a job that doesn't fulfill you, ending a relationship, starting a relationship, whatever it is, then it's not being used wisely or
Yeah,
effectively,
that makes
right?
sense.
If you have a block, because sometimes this happens where like certain words just like don't jive with you, you know? And
Mhm.
I'm like, let's just change the word, right?
Yes.
Um, and so if the idea of like success is like traumatizing to your millennial achievement-based brain, then just reframe it as trying something new or being a trailblazer or being bold or being
Yep.
relentless. Like I remember we shared that, like people calling
Yeah.
us relentless. We're like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, totally reframed that. I started owning that. So Kat's talking about, I mean, I'm sure she's had her own experience with this, but one of the things that has happened to me is someone was like exasperated with me. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
being so persistent and perhaps annoying. They're like, "Oh my God, Candace, you are relentless." Like they were annoyed. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I am relentless. And I totally just owned that. And I love that. And now it's like one of my values, like relentlessness. Like that is how I want to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I kinda owned the part of my brand that is a little bit annoying, and I say that often because that's just who I am. That's who I am if I'm your friend, and it's
Yeah.
who I am in my brand, and might as well just own it. So, yeah, absolutely believe in that, and I think that reframing is really helpful. So when Dom and I first got married, he already lived in this house, and I moved in with him.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I moved in after we got married, and he was like, great. He was just like, yeah, this is your house now. Like, do you?
Welcome.
Except one thing. I had one rule.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think I know this.
I know. The rule was we couldn't have a junk drawer in the kitchen. He was
Oh, no,
not
I
about
did
a
know
junk
this.
drawer. He
Yes,
does
I do
not want
remember
that.
this conversation. Mhm.
And so obviously I'm like, cool, like I have free reign except the one rule of not having a junk drawer, no problem. So I made a utility drawer.
Exactly.
Why not, right? So it
Why
has
not? No, Candace,
pens and
explain what a utility
batteries
drawer
and
is. Mhm.
scissors and,
And your old IDs,
paper
paper
clips.
clips, Post-it
Yeah,
notes, sandwich
exactly.
baggies. Mhm.
You know,
It's
exactly.
a
Maybe a
utility drawer.
screwdriver. It's a
Uh-huh. Yeah.
utility drawer, not
Allen
a
wrench.
junk
Yeah.
drawer.
Nope.
Like we have things there that we
Mhm.
often need. And
Mhm.
it was a slight reframe. Maybe I rebranded it, but it
I was gonna say
worked.
that was a
Yeah,
rebrand. Yeah.
it was a
Did
rebrand
we
and a
have to?
reframe.
Can we make sure Don doesn't listen to this episode? He
Sometimes when
and
he goes
Will
away
both
for
listen to.
work, he like binges our episodes and then he like texts me commentary on them.
I love that.
So I'm sure in a few weeks he'll be on a work trip and be like,
Mhm.
that damn utility drawer. Just
He'd be
kidding.
like, "That
He
woman."
loves it. He got batteries from
Yeah.
the utility drawer this weekend. Like it worked out perfectly.
He has proven its utility. So
Exactly.
the other thing too, I think that this gets me with like the idea of success. And this was something that Chris Doe, when he was on our podcast a little while back, had shared. Or I was like, you're never going to get to the destination unless you continue failing and learning and failing fast and failing as fast as you can to learn as much as you can, as quick as you can. And he was like, well, what if it's not about a destination and it's just about the journey? And this is like one little baby pit stop, rest stop
Hmm.
moment along the journey. And so, like, it kind of takes the pressure off of it. Like, okay, yeah, you're starting over in a new industry. Okay, yeah, you're starting a new job. How many new jobs have you started in your life already?
Yeah.
How many more do you think you're going to start in the next 50, 60, 70 years if you are lucky enough to live that long? How many new jobs are you going to start? How many new cities are you going to move to? How many kids are you going to have and have to learn how to be a parent again? It's like, it's just one little itty bitty moment. It doesn't have to be this big like mountain that you carry on your shoulders. Like, oh my God, if I don't land that client, if I don't hit my income goal, the world is over. I'm worthless. I might as well just crawl into a hole, you know? Like,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Don't do that to yourself. Why are we doing that to
It
ourselves?
sounds really silly when I articulate it. I hope people listening like don't do that to yourself, you know?
Yep. When I'm thinking about a reframe, I know one thing that I had to reframe in my mind early on was I think this is the right thing to teach your kids. I don't know. Now that I'm a parent, I'm thinking about things. Now that I'm going to be a parent, I'm thinking about things like this.
Yeah.
So, like teaching your kid to like value hard work. My parents
Mm,
definitely were hard workers and taught my brothers and I to be hard workers.
mm-hmm.
But I think that there's a point when that mindset can limit you because this is something that you and I talked about actually yesterday. So I won't say any names here, but your client had an opportunity to do a really big podcast,
Mm-hmm.
be a guest on a really big podcast,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of listeners, which could have been a turning point in his business because of the visibility that he would have gotten. Now, he turned down the podcast, likely for maybe reasons I don't understand. But one of the main reasons that he turned down the podcast was because he was going to be gifted this opportunity and other people paid for this opportunity or in some way in his mind earned the opportunity where
Mm-hmm.
he didn't feel like he earned it and
Mm-hmm.
therefore he said no.
Yeah.
And what I've learned in entrepreneurship is that I say yes to the opportunities that are aligned with my goals, whether or not I feel like I've earned that opportunity. Because I've definitely
Mm-hmm.
sat on panels where I felt like these people are really cool and I'm
Yeah.
baby cool compared to them. And maybe I don't feel like I'm good enough to be there, but they invited me. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say yes instead of saying, "Oh no, I can't sit next to that person because that person's fucking amazing." And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like I'm scratching the
Yeah.
surface of that, you know? I'm going to
Yeah.
say yes. And I think what that makes me think is that earning is subjective because I did
Mm-hmm.
earn that spot according to the person who invited me there.
And I think I appreciate you bringing up that instance too, because it's like my mom is an immigrant and both my grandmothers were. And this idea of like hard work and a work ethic was really instilled at me. And I still pride myself on my work ethic, but it's not, you don't have to always work hard every single time in every single situation. Like it's not a be all end all like that, you know? And
And maybe it is your hard work that got you that
you just
opportunity.
don't know
You just don't know
specifically,
it.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
just, which is why it'd be a great opportunity to ask the person, right? Like when you were on that panel, or I've had these moments where I'm negotiating speaking fees for conferences and I'm just like, when are they going to call bullshit on me? Like, when is that going
Yeah.
to happen? And they're like, no, we want to have you. Like, this is our budget.
I'm
Like, we
like
can do this plus travel.
when they too easily say yes, that's how you
Right.
know you undercut
I
yourself.
know. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. That I made that mistake once last year. I'm not going to again this year. I'm like, psh. But yeah, it's like it's just so interesting. And here's the other thing too. If you are in a situation and you're listening to this podcast and you have a lot in common with Candace and I, because I imagine that's why you want to listen to this podcast and what we're sharing and how we do business. Um, the how of doing whatever it is you want to do to get to the goal that you have, you will figure that out. Like, just be really clear on why you want what you want. Like, if you're super unequivocally clear on the why, you'll figure it the fuck out. You'll figure out the how. The how is like child's play. Like, Candace,
Yeah.
when you were on that panel, if you didn't know your shit, I mean, that would have
Right.
shown regardless. But
Right.
you do when you pulled from your reserves and your wisdom and you connected and you probably referenced other panelists and you probably called up people in the like, because I know I've seen you in action. You'll figure it out. Just be clear on the like, why do you want that income goal? Why do you want to change industries? Why do you want to build a team? Whatever it might be, that alleviates all of the at least for me, it alleviates the pressure because I was like, nobody can fuck with my why.
Yep.
Did I drop two
Yeah.
F-bombs? I got the two F-bombs in there. Feel free to
There
drop
you
one.
go. I think you're good.
I was getting fired up.
Are you going for 3 today or what's happening?
I mean,
Okay.
we'll see. Hat
Um,
trick, you know.
but I think reframing success and reframing the boundaries that you've set up for yourself, or breaking down the boundaries you've set up for yourself, um, will really help you to expand. And that's what this is all about. Everything is about expansion, and not expansion because you have to, wear yourself down, but expansion because it actually helps to fill you up. Because when you expand, you can impact more people. And when you impact more people, you're likely feeling even better about yourself because you probably started this because you wanted to have an impact on people.
Yeah, like permission to take up the space and to want the success. I remember, have I told you the story about like when I used to ride BART when I worked in San Francisco and
I
I
think
lived in
so,
the
but
Bay Area?
you could tell the clever crew.
Okay, I want to tell the clever crew again. So I was like in my early 20s, like probably just turned 20, and I was working a corporate city girl job in San Francisco, and I would commute on BART, which is like the subway, like the metro, like the train from East Bay where I lived into the city. And I just remember there'd be these moments where I would get on the train at my stop and there wouldn't be a whole lot of people on the train. But then the closer we got to city, the more people would be getting on the train and it would become more and more crowded. And I remember the like anxiety of having to just make myself so small to make room for everybody around me, and how I noticed like other people, typically men, weren't making themselves small. They were the ones bumping into me and like their
Hmm.
backpacks were hitting me. And I was like, but I was like, kind of like my posture and everything was just not wanting to take up space, wanting to be invisible. And I remember having that like light bulb moment. I was like, fuck that. I was like, I'm not gonna, there we go. I did it. I did it. Three F bombs. Dang. I was like, I'm not going to be small. I'm not gonna be obnoxious, but I will be bold and I will be assertive in like little
Hmm.
moments. And so like for me, 14 years ago, 13, 14 years ago now, I decided to not like shrink on a train.
Not
Like that,
physically shrink on a
not
train,
physically shrink
because
on a train.
that also in some way informs what you do outside of that train.
It does. How you act when nobody's watching, because nobody was watching me on the train. Nobody was even paying attention, right? I was
Yeah.
allowing myself to shrink. How you
Because you
are
were
when
trying to
nobody's
be
watching.
nice.
I know. Little did I know this podcast was waiting for me in my future. But like me not deciding not to like shrink and be small was a win. Like that was a
Hmm.
tiny little win of like, how am I going to carry myself when nobody's watching in my day to day, something that I spend 15 hours a week doing, riding the train. It was a small little win. It wasn't me asking for a promotion. It wasn't me getting a raise. It wasn't me doing any of these like major, like typical successful things. But I think starting small and however you can like find little wins will help you get to the big ones, you know?
Yeah. It's about not compromising yourself.
Yeah.
So let's give the clever crew some practical steps that they can do to overcome the fear of success.
Yeah. So I think the one I had already kind of shared, like the small wins,
Yep.
you completing a project that you've never done before. You're inspiring me, Candace, with you still going to Pilates. Like are you 7 months pregnant now and you're still doing
I'm
it? Like
7 months pregnant. I'm
you're
giving birth
killing
in
it.
10 weeks or so.
And you're still
Crazy.
working out regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like those little things, like don't don't think of success as just like in a monetary fashion or career fashion. Celebrate those small little wins and appreciate, hell yeah, I got my ass to that 5 a.m. gym class. Like, hell yeah, I, stuck to healthier eating habits like later on in the evening. I didn't binge on candy or alcohol, whatever it was. So
Hmm.
like take a moment, because that is as much an achievement as negotiating a raise or closing a
Yeah,
big deal, in my opinion. Right.
totally. then you have to, I mean, I'm going to say this till I'm blue in my face, but
Keep doing
create
it.
a support system of people who get it, who get your vision, who can remind you that you can handle this, that you've got this, and stay away from the people who think what you want is crazy or delusional. Like,
Mhm.
if they think what you want is crazy, they're not your people.
Yeah. And those people might change too. So
Yeah.
like truly, I feel like one of the reasons, the main reason why Not Nice Clever and our Clever crew has grown so much is because like I'm not doing it alone and you're not doing it alone. Like we have each
Yeah.
other, we have Corinne, we have the Clever crew. And it's like the idea that people are successful by themselves is a lie. Like
Such a lie.
you definitely got to take part. Be self-aware, stand up straight, fix your posture, notice the small wins, but like also reach out to people. Like,
Ask for help. No one
mhm,
does this alone.
yeah, huge. And then this last one's probably going to be very terrifying is that permission granted for everyone watching and listening to this to be seen, to shine in whatever talent or skill you have. You're not bragging, you're boasting your ability to make an impact and to grow. Permission granted. Okay, you're not going to die. Might feel like you're going to die, but you're not going to die. Like we got you. And just permission to be seen. And I think one of the other things coming from like a corporate background when I first started in like the career world, I thought that being vulnerable was being unprofessional. But I think it's really changed. And obviously I'm not in corporate anymore and I'm like very entrepreneurial. But I think vulnerability this day and age has really become a superpower to connect with people and to build trust and to build confidence. Like you can share something and somebody else will raise their hand and say, yeah, I went through that too. And you're like, oh shit,
Yep.
you know?
So Clever crew, thanks for listening today. If you are afraid of success, we invite you to take some practical steps to overcome the fear, to recognize that the fear is there in the first place. And if you know someone who needs to listen to this episode, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, leave a 5-star review. It really helps us to bring on the best guests for you. And we have some amazing guest episodes for you coming up in 2025, and they'll get better as those reviews roll in. Thanks for joining us on Not Nice, Clever.
Remember to follow Not Nice, Clever wherever you listen to audio.
And if you haven't already, drop that 5-star review.
Share your takeaways. Tell us your story. We love to hear it.
Signing off, you're not so nice, but oh so clever besties that mean business.
See you soon.